exploring the intersection of resilient technology, organizations, and people. REdeploy.
So I just wanted to start, unrelated, but I've been loving seeing everybody's stickers on their laptops up here. I read somewhere that laptop stickers are the prison tattoos of the tech world. As you can see, I already have my REdeploy tattoo on my laptop, proudly displayed. I just think it's funny. You can tell a lot about people from their laptop stickers. Okay, so the talk that you've all been waiting for, the one that happens before lunch. You're welcome. We're talking about mindfulness. Particularly mindfulness at work, how to overcome the overwhelm. So I'm Lee, as Paul said. I'm a software test engineer at WillowTree, Inc. We're a mobile product agency in Charlottesville, Virginia. I've been doing QA work for about 4+ years. I like to travel, do yoga. I love to cook. Horseback riding is a big one. And Harry Potter. Any Harry Potter fans? Yeah, it's the best. And these are my very creative contact information, which is my name, both for email and Twitter. So I'm going to preface with that I am not a doctor. We're going to be talking about stress management techniques in this talk. And though I have found those to be very helpful for me personally, if you are dealing with extreme stress, anxiety, depression, results of stress, that you feel like you cannot deal with on your own, please do not hesitate to reach out to medical professionals. These techniques that I'm going to show you are good ways to alleviate especially day-to-day stress, but if you do have those feelings of long-term stress that are really getting in the way of you living your life to the fullest, I encourage you to reach out to somebody to help with that. Okay, so this is an interactive presentation too. Get excited. Who here has felt stressed at work before? Pretty much everybody. Who has felt so stressed at work that you've thought about leaving early or taking a day off just because you can't deal with the stress? Who here has felt physically ill from the stress they experience at work? Okay, so everybody look around. You see all the hands raised. You are not alone. That is one thing I want a major takeaway to be. Stress at work is very common. We all experience it, and you are not weird or alone or incapable because you feel stress. But here's some facts about it. 79% of Americans report feeling stressed sometimes or frequently at work. So that's not even the occasional group. That's sometimes or frequently. 70+% of Americans report feeling physical and psychological reactions to stress. Physical reactions include nausea, headaches, fatigue, strained muscles. Psychological effects are trouble sleeping, depression, anxiety, things like that. 87% of workers worldwide are not actively engaged at work. And $300 billion per year are spent in the US on stress-related healthcare. So clearly it's a very big problem that people deal with on a day-to-day basis in the workplace, and especially in the tech world, I think we deal with a lot of stress. But to help is mindfulness. So what is mindfulness other than a buzzword that's thrown around all the time? It is the quality or state of being conscious or aware of something. So you could hear I'm mindful of that, I'm mindful of this. But it is also a mental state achieved by focusing one's awareness on the present moment while calmly acknowledging and accepting one's feelings, thoughts, and bodily sensations. So that's a lot of words. It's a jumble. When I first read that, I didn't really understand. I was like, mindfulness, what is that? So weird. But essentially, mindfulness is being aware of yourself. It's a deep sense of self-awareness where feelings or thoughts or even physical feelings that you experience, you can be aware of and know how to react to. So it's not that things just happen to you. It's that you experience things that you can be aware of. So what does it mean to be mindful on a daily basis? One of the biggest ways that mindfulness can manifest itself in your daily life is that you don't just do things mindlessly. So getting your coffee in the morning, instead of it just being something that you do and you wake up and, oh, I'm gonna walk downstairs and grab my coffee, that you turn it into something that is a time for reflection and you check in with yourself. Did I sleep well last night? What weird dreams did I have? Why maybe did I dream about that? Also, just daily checking in with yourself and understanding when things happen to you, the feelings that you have related to them are due to those events. They're not just things that have randomly happened. There's a cause and effect that you can then deal with. Even if there isn't really a cause, even if it's just, I'm just not feeling it today, just being aware of that is part of mindfulness. So a big part of being mindfulness is being intentional, so doing things with an intention. At work, a lot of times this is just as simple as doing one thing at a time. This can really help with stress management because I think a lot of times our plates are very full and we say, oh my gosh, I have to do this, 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 and this, and I can't do it, it's too much. But if you say, okay, right now, I have to do this one thing, that's much more manageable. That's a much lower stress situation. And acknowledging that you're being intentional with that one task that you're doing instead of just kind of half-minding a bunch of tasks. Making a to-do list is a really good way to be able to do this. If you have a to-do list in front of you, sometimes people don't really like the concept of a to-do list because it can be a little overbearing, but hear me out. To-do list isn't, here's how full my day is. It is, here are the individual tasks that I want to complete throughout the day in an organized way that I then don't have to just remember them throughout the day, but that I can refer back to. So that way it allows us to clear the clutter from our brains and have it be something right in front of us. Having a to-do list also helps us to know other tasks that we can move on when it's time to move on to another task. I know I have a lot of times at work, I'll get stuck on something and I'm really stubborn. I'm a very, very stubborn person. And so if something's not working, we'll just work at it harder and harder to try and make something better. But sometimes being in that mindset doesn't help me to achieve the goal that I'm trying to get or accomplish the task. Sometimes it's better to just put it down and say, you know, I will get to this later this afternoon. Right now, let me do this other thing, and maybe I'll have some clarity to that problem that I was dealing with if I just step away. And if you have your to-do list, then you know other tasks that you can move on to. To go back to the coffee example that I gave earlier, in relation to the power of rituals and routines. So who here has coffee or tea every single morning? I know I do. Need it. Had it this morning. Could you tell? I think that a lot of times coffee is a good example, but you could apply this to anything. It's something that we just do. It's something that just needs to happen to get the day started. But imagine if you, when you got your coffee, thought of 3 things that you're excited about for the day. You make that your routine, that you're getting the coffee in the morning, you're feeling excited about the day, you're preparing yourself. And you do that every single day. And it helps to just realign our systems so that we say, oh, I'm getting my coffee, that means I'm preparing for my day. Not, oh, I'm just getting my coffee, whoa, and then it's gonna, I need to run out the door. Allowing ourselves to have these routines and these rituals helps us to align our minds and our bodies into being prepared for the day and the stress of the day. And it makes us much more mindful about the activities that we're doing. Another part of mindfulness is about treating yourself the way you want to be treated. This is kind of obviously a riff on the golden rule, treat others the way you want to be treated. And I think that that is very important. But sometimes we forget to treat ourselves nicely. So one way to do that is by being honest with yourself. Holding yourself to being true to yourself, both in who you are and what you can accomplish. If you aren't that way, then sometimes you can take on more than you can handle. Sometimes you feel like this imposter syndrome of, oh, why am I doing this task? I don't even know how to do this, and I don't know where to begin. And you get into these stressful situations that could be avoided if you were just being honest with yourself. Also knowing that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to say, I don't know how to do this, or I'm having a hard time with this. Not necessarily saying I can't unless you really cannot. Mindfulness is not an excuse to eschew work and say, oh, I'm just being mindful. That's not what this is about at all. I think that sometimes people get that in their brains, and that's when you get the mindfulness, right, okay, hippy-dippy stuff. But it's more about knowing your limits, understanding that you can be vulnerable and you can reach out to people. and respecting those limits. So know when you've reached a psychological boundary, sort of like what Matt was just talking about with our stress reactions, and you get to a point where you just shut down. If you're mindful and you can tell when you're reaching that point, maybe you'll be able to subvert some of the negative effects from that. Maybe you'll be able to say, you know what, I'm feeling myself reaching this fight or flight mode, and I should do something about it. But if you're not aware of what you're feeling, it's harder to identify that point. So respecting your limits, treating yourself the way you want to be treated. Okay, this is the fun part. So I'm going to go through some stress coping techniques. Some of them are more mindful than others. This is interactive. Don't feel like you need to participate. That's all I'll say. Yeah, it's good. So just a few stress coping techniques that I have found that have helped me in being able to deal with overwhelming situations at work. So changing your environment. A lot of times we'll have stress associated with a specific environment that we are in. So for instance, your desk. Let's say that you're going through a really hard time at work, you're deploying your new release out to the App Store or to production, it's very stressful, and just the thought of sitting at your desk makes you feel anxious. Well, don't sit at your desk then. Go to a conference room, go to a booth, sit at a coffee shop, ask a coworker if they want to join you. That way you can still have a collaborative environment. But if being at your desk is stressful, you can change environments, and that's just a simple way to avoid some of that stress. Even just if it's not something that's a stressful time, by changing environments up a little bit, sometimes we can just get new perspectives on things. And it helps us see things as a new situation rather than, oh, I'm just sitting at my desk and doing the same work over and over again. Stretching, okay. So, one of the things that I said about a physical response to stress is that you get muscle tension. I know I feel it a lot of times, especially in my upper back and my neck, that when I'm stressed out, I do this classic, like, rub my neck situation. So sometimes it's as simple as just stretching and releasing that tension in your muscles. So for everybody that wants to participate, be mindful of your neighbors. If you lift your arms in the air, take what is going to be your left, my right hand, and grab your opposite wrist, and then just lean over to the side, pull that wrist over, and feel that stretch in your side body. All right, and then go straight and switch and do it on the other side. All right. Then you can release your arms, maybe give yourself a wiggle if you feel like it. I love a good wiggle at my desk. So who feels a little bit better? Who feels like, it feels good to stretch, it's nice. Especially sitting in the chairs all day, and like we sit in chairs at our desks all day. Being engineers, we tend to not have extremely physically demanding jobs. So it's good sometimes to just get that stretch, get lactic acid moving, get your blood flowing, feeling that. And it helps to then release the tension that you might be feeling from the stress in your muscles. So checking in with your body. This one I think is also very important for the kind of work we do, especially how much flow is valued, which I think flow is great. And for those that don't know what flow is, it's this concept where you're so engrossed in a task that you're doing that you don't even realize the passing of time. So have you ever had those moments where you stop and you're like, oh wow, how did it get so late? I didn't even realize the time flew by. Flow is great. However, drinking water, making sure you're fed, that you're going to the bathroom, those are also great things. Things that we tend to forget when we're working really hard on a problem or when we're very stressed out. We don't take care of ourselves. So checking in with your body and making sure that you have what you need to function properly is really important. Hannah yesterday said something that I always say too, which is that your brain is part of your body. So if you're not taking care of your body, how can you possibly expect your brain to function fully? So shifting gears is another thing. I kind of touched on this a little earlier, but I think that it's important enough to be noted again. Sometimes, again, the stubbornness, we get so caught up in a task that we're just go, 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 and just diving so deep into it, and maybe hitting our head against a wall while we're doing that. Maybe we're not being as productive as we could be. So if you find yourself feeling that way, you're so stressed and just thinking about trying to solve the problem that you have is just stressing you out and you're not getting work done, then put it down and do something else. being productive is not the same as being active. I have a little Post-it note on my desk that says productivity, not activity. And it's the only Post-it note I have, believe it or not. But I love that because doing good work isn't about just sitting at your desk and looking busy or about just working hard. It's about working in a way that is beneficial for the team and beneficial for yourself. And so if you're going to mentally burn yourself out on a problem that you're having a hard time solving, sometimes it's good to just put it down and come back to it. All right, mindfulness activities. Here's that magic buzzword again. So mindfulness activities is a really general term for basically anything that helps you achieve a more mindful state. So classics like yoga, meditation, I'm sure we've all heard of these before. But there's also lots of other things. If you are a spiritual person or religious person, quiet time, prayer time is another way to be mindful. Also, gratitude practice, which is something in the mindfulness community where essentially you write down or you think about things that you are grateful for. And it sounds so simple, but it's amazing when you start thinking about those things that you are happy about, that the things that you're very stressed about tend to melt away a little more. So another interactive part, which is amazing that Matt mentioned meditation, because I'm going to lead you in a very small guided meditation right now. So again, if this makes you uncomfortable, if this is something that you just don't feel good about, do not feel like you need to participate. But for those of you that do, I want everybody to sit up, sit on your sits bones, as they call it, which is just a nice way to say your booty. If you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes. And I want everybody to just breathe normally. Feel the breath entering your lungs and leaving. And then try and any thoughts that you have that are flitting through, acknowledge them and let them go. If you want to, you can also set an intention, which is different than a goal. An intention is something that you want to focus on that helps you to feel calm, that leads you to a quality that's something that you want. So things like love or patience. If you just think on that word, and as these thoughts come through your mind, acknowledge them, let them go, and remember your intention. So we're just going to sit for a moment and breathe. Everybody just breathe normally again. Feel the lungs, the air in your lungs. Feel the seat under you, the ground under your feet, the quiet of the building, even the air conditioning going, which is very nice. We're very grateful for that. And just focus on that calmness. Everybody just breathing. And as you're ready, if you want to start blinking your eyes open, you can relax if you're not already relaxed. And just roll out your shoulders and think about the feeling that you have right now, that you were able to key in with the thoughts that were going through your brain. That thoughts aren't things that just happen to you, they're things that you make in your mind, that you have control over. So that's like a very easy meditation practice that you can do at home. It's very simple, setting an intention. Like I said, it's not a goal. So an intention isn't, I want to get promoted or I want to lose weight. An intention is, I want to have love in my life. And not necessarily I want a boyfriend, or a girlfriend or anything, but that you want to live a more love-centered life, that you want to be more patient, that you want to be more peaceful. And those are good things to think about in a mindfulness practice when you're doing meditation, things like that. Exercise. So to quote Legally Blonde, exercise makes endorphins. Endorphins make you happy. And it's true, they do. Elle Woods knew what she was talking about. So exercising is a great way to deal with stress. I know I personally exercise every morning because it makes me feel better and more prepared for the day. Not saying that everybody needs to exercise every morning. And saying exercise is a stress coping technique isn't, oh, I go and run a marathon on every weekend and, But exercise can be as simple as, I'm feeling very stressed out and I'm gonna go for a walk. I'm gonna go and just do some stretches, maybe do a couple push-ups because that helps me to feel better about my situation. And it does release endorphins, which then makes you feel happier in the long run. Brain chemistry, something like that. Asking for help. That's another one that I already talked about, but to reiterate, it's very important. When we share sommunity with others, when we are able to lean on each other, we're much more able to deal with the stresses that we deal with. Sometimes I think that we have this mindset that we want to cover all the bases of everything going on in our life all at once, but there's a reason a baseball team is 9 people and not 1 person. And that's because we cannot cover all the bases on our own. We need to lean on each other, and we need to be able to be vulnerable and honest with ourselves and reach out to people to ask for help when we need it. It helps to deal with stress even just in the simplest. If you don't necessarily get the help that you need, just being able to admit that you need help takes that burden off of you that you might feel if you're just stuck in a very stressful situation. Okay, follow your bliss. This is another slightly interactive one. So how many people have things on their desk that mean something to them? Pictures of family, maybe like stuffed animals, something cute. Why do we do that? Why is that something that's important to us? It's because we want to surround ourselves by things that make us happy. There was a study done by, I think it's the American Psychology Association, that determined that people that watched a 30-second cat video before they had to do a task were 12 times more efficient at doing that task than the people that didn't. So not to just advocate for cat videos, because they are adorable, and I do wish the rest of my presentation was cat videos, but bear with me. Less cats than I would have liked. It's fine. But by having things surround us that make us happy, or having playful conversations with our coworkers, making jokes, looking at memes or cat videos when we have a moment of a break, helps us to just feel better about ourselves in general, the world that we live in, the work that we're doing, the environments that we occupy. So it's even a simple way to do this. If you're feeling stressed, and this is gonna sound ridiculous, but just the act of smiling helps to trick our parasympathetic nervous system into thinking that we're happy. So instead of thinking, oh, I'm happy, so I'm smiling, maybe smile to help you be happy. So if everybody just wants to do a little smile now, sometimes you feel so ridiculous, you'll actually laugh because it's ridiculous. You're sitting at your desk, haha, I'm coding something really stressful. But it helps you to just feel lighter, that using those muscles sends signals to your brain that says, I'm happy right now. And then you do feel a little happier. Helps us to deal with stress. And having that lightness about our worlds helps us to navigate more easily through stressful situations. Get outside. That's another one that I think is really important. There's been a lot of research done about the value of spending time in nature and how that helps us to lead more happy, fulfilling lives. But even at its most base quality, the sun, magical sun, that's why we are all here, why we're all able to be here, emits UVB radiation that triggers the cholesterol in our skin to produce vitamin D, which makes us feel happy. So if you can just get out in the sun, or if you're living in Portland, like so many people here live, and it's not sunny, somehow you can get those lamps that trigger UVB rays, vitamin D production, and just for 2 minutes, for 30 seconds even, just to get a little bit of that hit of fresh air, sunshine, helps us to deal with stress better and feel happier. Focused breathing is the last of our stress coping techniques, and this is another interactive one. But breathing is one of those qualities that we have that we don't think about very much. It's an act that we do thousands of times in a day. Breathe in, breathe out, something that everybody has in common. We all do it, but we don't always think about it. I know the only time I really think about it is when I'm trying to sing Bohemian Rhapsody and I lose my breath because I am not Freddie Mercury, and then I'm like, wow, I'm really out of breath. But when we can be more aware of our breathing, it helps us to control it more, focus on it, and reap the benefits from it. So why do we breathe, right? We need oxygen. And oxygen is what helps us to live. Without it, we don't live. We die without oxygen. And so if we're not getting enough of it, or we're not supplying our body with enough oxygen, we're always in a little bit of that flight or fright mode. Fight or flight. Yeah. So this other exercise, which I have a very lovely little graphic that I did not make, but someone at my work did. Thanks, Austin. He's not here, but I told him I'd give him a shout out. So there's a lot of different breathing techniques. There is box breathing, which some people have heard about, which is you essentially follow the lines of a box and you breathe in and hold and then breathe out and hold. And you can kind of do that. It's a nice visual representation of your breathing. There's also alternate nostril breathing, which is you can make like a yeah dude sign and breathe in through one nostril, hold, switch nostrils, breathe out, and then breathe in through that nostril, hold, and switch. That's really good if you have clogged sinuses too. It's weird, kind of gross, but that helps us to really make sure that we're getting oxygen to all parts of our brain, all parts of our body, and breathing in through both nostrils equally. The one that we're going to do today is called 7-4-8 breathing. So we're going to breathe in for 7 beats, we're going to hold for 4, and then we're going to breathe out for 8. So as a reminder, breathing in for 7 and out for 8 means slowly breathing in and out. So I have done this exercise a few times and people have come back and said, well, yeah, I just breathed in really quickly on the first 2 beats and then had to hold it for 10 beats. It's like, oh, well, sorry. Guess I should have prefaced. Again, this is something, if this makes you uncomfortable, I don't want anybody to pass out. So don't feel like you have to go to a stressful limit with this breathing. This exercise is purely to help. We're going to go through 3 rounds of this, and then we'll check in and see how everybody's feeling. So everybody ready? Empty out your lungs and breathe in. And hold. And breathe out. If you feel like you want to make a noise when you're doing this too, you are fully able to do that. Breathe in. And hold. And breathe out. All right, last one. Breathe in. And hold. And breathe out. All right, so who feels better? That's pretty great. Breathing is awesome. Breathing rocks. But that was so simple, right? And it's something we don't think about a lot at work. But I know whenever I am stressed, one of the first things I do is make sure that I am breathing enough. Take a big, deep breath in and breathe out. And that's something you can easily do at your desk. You feeling stressed? Breathe. It's that simple. So another aspect of mindfulness too is the attitude that you have about what you're doing. So attitude is everything. We've heard that before. But it's sort of like what Hannah said yesterday about internal and external focuses on what we're doing. So instead of saying, this is impossible, saying, what can I do about it? Having a growth mindset. Also, looking at situations that are maybe really negative, like, oh, the API is down and it's not in our control, or, as a QA person, I'll generally say, the developer didn't do the thing the way I wanted them to do, and now it has to go back into swirl. But in those situations, you have to take it as a learning opportunity and focus on the silver linings. Oh, the developer didn't do what I wanted them to do. Well, maybe that's because I should learn about how to communicate better with developers. Or, oh, the API's down and we can't do anything. Well, maybe we should take this opportunity then to look at how we deal with when the API is down. Or maybe we can even take this time to make sure our documentation is up to date. Finding silver linings in the situations that you do. Also just being positive and finding those positive aspects of work. I know all the time, when I'm dealing with a stressful situation, I can be a little doom and gloom, which is probably very hard for you to imagine, me being doom and gloom, like what? But it happens. It happens to the happiest of people, the most mindful of people, that we do get stuck in a rut. But if you focus on, oh, well, work is really stressful, but hey, I get to sit next to my coworker who's really cool, and like hang out with them, and that's awesome. Or we have a cool lunch and learn talk this week, and I'm really excited about that. Things that help you to feel happy and focusing on those. So why is this important? Other than just daily feeling less stressed, what are the larger repercussions of this? So like I said, increased productivity. Happy workers are 12% more productive than unhappy workers, which means greater dividends for the company as a whole and your project as its own little microcosm of a company. Reduced stress levels. So almost half of Americans report that stress has a negative impact on their social lives and relationships. This is particularly true for relationships for married couples. It's found, It's found that I think about half of married couples report that stress at work has a negative impact on their marriages, which is shocking. Also, for single people, it's found more that they report issues with their social lives when they're feeling stressed at work. I know when I feel stressed, I don't want to go out and do fun things with my friends, and I just want to sit at home and, watch Netflix. Netflix is great, love Netflix, but sometimes you want a social life, you want to do things, and if you're feeling the repercussions of that stress, you're not as likely to do that, and it bleeds over into the rest of your life. So being able to have a better management of stress, being more mindful of the stresses that you experience, allows you to have a more complete life. Also, decreased physical impact. So long-term stress contributes to advanced aging at a genetic level. So aging, just a brief biology lesson, genetics lesson, aging occurs when our telomeres that are part of our DNA shorten. So when we're born, we have longer telomeres, and then as we get older, they shorten because our cell replication doesn't operate at the same level that it did when we were younger. So it's found that extreme stress lends to this telomere shorting. So you literally, if you are feeling long-term chronic stress, age faster. Increased happiness, too, is a really important thing. I think we all want to be happy. That's the whole thing, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? It's like written in America's DNA. But being more mindful at work leads to being better able to handle stress, which makes happier, more productive employees. So, just some key takeaways to wrap up. Again, mindfulness is key. Being aware of the stress levels that you're experiencing and the stress that enters your life on a day-to-day basis is an important step to being able to overcome overwhelming situations. Being intentional and honest with yourself is also very important. Focus on being in the moment and setting realistic goals for yourself. And know when you've reached your limit and when to ask for help. Having a growth mindset, trying to focus on the silver lining, even if it's sort of a fake it till you make it situation, if you're having a hard time at work, just trying to find those happy situations that help you to get through the difficult situations you're dealing with. And then knowing that nothing is a mistake if you can learn from it. That's the difference between mistakes and experiences, the amount of learning that occurs between them. And then the long-term impacts. Obviously, managing day-to-day stress helps to avoid long-term consequences on an individual and organizational level, which makes for, if we can counteract those long-term impacts, then it helps us to lead more satisfying and well-meaning lives. So thank you. I do have some references here. I'll make sure that these slides are up. There's a few apps that you can use to help with guided meditation, such as Calm, Headspace, and Breathe. There is even an app called Mindfulness app, which you can find in the App Store. On your computer, there's an app called Timeout. There's several other, there's like Tomato Timer, which helps you to take periodic breaks. But timeout is another one that helps kind of force you to take a break from work, which, sometimes we need to be forced to do that. There's also websites. Happify is games that help lead us to being more mindful and just kind of key in with our happiness. Omvana is guided meditations, and mindful.org has a lot of really great mindfulness articles that you can look up and kind of just help you to learn more about being mindful. Also, one thing I didn't know until recently, if you Google search breathing exercise, Google has a built-in breathing exercise in its search engine, and you can look that up and just do a quick little breathing exercise at work. So yeah, and then acknowledgements. My friend Jenny Bramble told me about this conference. I'm super grateful to her, and then Jake Austin and Aaron helped me with getting my slides ready. And thank you to all of you, and thank you to Paul and Mary, and thank you to the rest of the speakers and everybody here listening. Really appreciate it.